Welcome, my friend, to episode 777. And this is actually part two of a two-part series that I'm doing with my friend Scott about creative financing and how to have conversations with the sellers. Seller financing, creative deal structuring, owner financing, these are all powerful strategies. But one of the hiccups that I find a lot of real estate investors have is how do you have that conversation, right? They feel like they need to pitch seller financing. And really, what Scott's about to share with you is that that's not at all what we're doing. So if you haven't listened to the previous episode, don't stop what you're doing now. Check out this episode because we kind of pick it up midway stream. But I do want you to circle back. This two-part series are one of those podcast episodes that I would encourage you guys to listen to several times because Scott really dissects the questions you have to ask, how you have to guide the conversation when it comes to seller financing, owner financing, some might call it. So I think you're gonna really appreciate Scott's approach to pitching seller financing and again, the conversation with these homeowners. He's done a bunch of these deals. Before we dive into it, guys, my belief is that storage is the best asset class within real estate. In fact, one of the deals that I own was bought with 90% seller financing. So the cool thing is what you're about to listen to on this episode can be applied towards any asset class. And seller financing is just one of the ways that we teach our Storage Wins community members on how to fund and structure these deals. So if you're somebody that wants to generate more cash flow, if you want to build wealth, if ultimately you want more time freedom, storage has provided that for me in ways that transactional businesses like wholesaling was never able to. The cool thing is that you don't need to do what I did. You don't need to do a hard pivot and transition fully into storage, but we're showing people how to do this part-time in a way that they can keep the focus on your existing business and what puts food on the table, but just adding storage because the marketing, the acquisitions is very, very similar. If you want to have a conversation about how you can get involved in storage to be a part of this and go find, fund, and close these deals, or just be a part of these deals, head over to www.storagewins.com, www.storagewins.com. And if I like what you have to say, we'll set up a brief conversation, let you know what we have going on. And with that being said, guys, let us transition into episode 777 with my buddy Scott.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
What's going on, my friends? I am back with part two with my buddy Scott. Now, here's what I want to do. If you guys have not had the opportunity to watch the part one interview, which was the last episode released on the Flip Empire show, do not go anywhere. Stick with us. And once you're done with this episode, I want you to circle back, watch part one, then come back and rewatch this. I promise you it will be worth your time and effort. I don't usually have guests on a part one, part two type series. I was actually just sharing that with Scott. And part of the reason I wanted to do this is because he was sharing so much in-depth, detailed information about seller financing and specifically how to have conversations with sellers that we just ran out of time. And I invited him back on here so that now we can get into the home stretch. So what do I mean by that? If you haven't heard part one, he took us through the psychology of the conversation to have with sellers. Here's the great thing is it is a zero pressured approach. There's no fancy script you have to memorize. It's just connecting with people. It's understanding how to ask certain questions, why the question. And I love the language patterns that Scott taught us in that part one series. So what we're going to be diving into today is how does Scott figure out what to present in terms of a seller finance? There's so many different ways you can kind of skin this cat, so to speak. So, Scott, brother, it is it's awesome to see you again, dude.
Same here. And I'm honored to be here, to be on a second time. I'm like, wow. Listen, by the time I'm done with this episode, I would give you everything I've got. None of your people will even need me.
Oh, I love
there it
it,
is.
man. Well, look, whether people decide to work with you or not, that's the aim and the goal of this podcast is to give people practical steps that they can go implement in their business.
Yeah.
So, so Scott, with that being said, we left the conversation in part one on you like getting to the point where you're in the living room, you're having a conversation, you've pretty much gotten to like, I used the analogy in part one of the red zone, right? We're on a football,
Yeah.
we got into like, we just went up the field 80 yards and we're in the last 20 yards, the home stretch. So what I would want to know is, based on the seller's situation, based on the particular pain points that they might have, or the reason that you are even in the living room, the reason that they're deciding to meet with you, they're obviously interested to some level in selling.
Yeah.
How is it that you figure out how you want to structure and present the offer?
Yeah. So I've got several things in my back pocket going into any conversation with anybody. So what I don't typically do is I don't come in and say, hey, I can give you this offer, and this offer. And sometimes we play around with those little walnuts, if you know what I mean, right? Where we're kind of shifting things around and we're really trying to direct them to one particular area. That's not typically how I do it. I want to be very, very light on my feet. But let me tell you the ways that I know that I can structure deals. I can do owner financing. I can do subject to. I can do a lease option. I can do a hybrid of any one of those three together if I had to, do subject to and some owner financing. I can do a cash offer. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways that I can go. And if I can't get any of that, I may say, hey, you know what? Anybody that I'm connected with, I refer to them as team members. I have team members, people that I'm connected to. So let's say I can only, maybe open the door for someone on my team, someone I know who's a good realtor. And I may say something like this, hey, Joe, it looks like, we're not going to be able to do anything based on the terms that we were discussing. I was really wanting to do it that way. Completely understand where you're at, and that's not something that's going to work for you. But listen, I got to tell you, I've got someone on my team. He's an excellent realtor. We would be honored for him to be able to come take, or her, to be able to come take a look at the house and see if it makes sense to do a listing. Is that something that you're open to? See, I've already built rapport. So that's even another strategy. If anything, I can get me a referral fee. Maybe I'll make $1,500 for a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah.
And I just pass it on to someone on my team who then makes the contact, and it's up to them to get the listing. And frankly, I don't even look back. I remember one time a realtor calling me back. It was like 6 months later saying, oh, by the way, you got a check coming. I go, I do. She said, remember that referral? I'm like, I guess I do. I didn't even think about it. I never even look back.
Yeah.
And just plow ahead. So I got a lot of different strategies. My job is to listen. And so what happens is that if you go into it already thinking, no, I want this to look this way, you're not going to listen. So
that's right. So how are you? Clearly you have a lot of tools in your tool belt, in your toolbox. Right? Like you talked about owner financing, subject to, lease options, any hybrid combination of those three, a cash offer. So the advantage you have versus your average wholesaler that is trying to like beat the homeowner over the head with their cash offer hammer, like you have multiple ways you can help somebody, right? It's in baseball, they talk about, I think it's called a 5-tool player, right? You can hit, catch, run, you can do all these different things versus like the one-trick pony. Like you have multiple ways you can get on base and score. How are you determining which strategy makes, and I realize this is a general broad question and the answer is it depends, but do you have a particular framework, or how do you dissect and look through the lens of, okay, it makes sense for me to pull this particular tool out versus this one?
Yeah. So my number one strategy every time that I get on the phone is I'm always going to start the conversation when I'm ready to talk to them about how I buy. It's always owner financing. It doesn't even matter. I suppose you could do it with lease option. I'd rather not do the lease option. And I've done lease option. If I can't get it on owner financing, I'll certainly do a lease option. I'd like to have deed. That's just in most cases anyway, I want that. It almost doesn't matter as long as you've got an entry point, because from there I can shift. Okay. So watch this. So maybe I do something like this. And we touched on this on the last episode. So I call, Diane answers the phone. Hi, Diane. Hey, Scott giving you a call about your house there at 123 Main Street. Hey, is this a good time for us to chat? Oh, yeah, that's great. She already knows who I am. Hi, Diane. I called her by her name. I'm not stumbling over myself.
Yeah.
Is this Diane? For crying out loud, the lead says her name is Diane, and the lady answers the phone.
That's it. It's really Diane.
Assume it's Diane, right?
Yes.
So I go into it just like that. It's very positive. She says, "Yeah, I'm available." Great. Hey, so you are selling the house, is that right? Well, of course I know that she is, but this is just to get some dialogue going. And it's also a question. I immediately take control of the conversation. So the house is for sale. Is that right? Oh, yeah, yeah. And they may offer a few little things here or there. I say, great. Well, listen, I'm definitely interested in buying your house. Every seller that I talk to is going to hear those words come out of my mouth. Now, you might think, but Scott, you haven't even seen the house. Well, you know what? I have the right at any point to go, yeah, I'm not going to buy your ugly house. I'm no longer interested. Everything in me on the front end, I want them to feel like, I think I just found my buyer.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, hey, I'm thinking about your house. No. Those are tire kickers. Hey, I'm definitely interested in buying your house. So Diane, what can you tell me about the house? And I touched on this last episode. What can you tell me about the house? Keep talking. Is it vacant? Is it rented? Or are you occupying it?
Right.
That question is what sets you up to know what direction to go in to see if you can identify pain. If there's no pain, you're wasting your time on this call.
That's right.
And you should, rule of thumb for me is I'm going to know within about 3 minutes if I should stay on the phone, because I get to that question pretty quickly. So if they say it's vacant, I go, it's vacant. Oh, Diane, how long has it been vacant for? Oh, it's been vacant for a year. In my mind, I'm thinking probably a parent died. It was in probate, probably took some time. So I say, oh, okay, hey, so it's been vacant for a whole year. So why has it been vacant for so long? And that's when they'll divulge that information. Now I know where to go. All right, so I'm always going to start with owner financing. Once I get through that, I'll say, okay, hey, great, thanks for all that information, Diane. Hey, Diane, let me tell you how I typically buy. I'm telling you, this is the gold and the magic that makes this work. Diane, let me tell you how I typically buy. Typically.
Yeah.
Favorite word, usually, normally.
Okay.
Very open-ended. Because if she said, oh, I would never do that. Okay. Well, like I said, typically I do this, but would you consider this? See, it's so easy to segue.
Yeah, it gives you a flexibility.
To my toolbox. Right? I'm going to go right down the stinking line until she's ready to hang up the phone on me. Okay. By the way, everything I do, there's no pressure. I am not a pressure. I want to control the conversation, but it's not controlled like in your face, twisting anyone's arm. I don't do anything like that. I'm not that way in real life to begin with. And I certainly don't want to do that in my business.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Same.
So I say, so typically the way that I buy, it's usually owner financing. Watch this. And all that means is, it's the great downplay. All that means is that I'll make a payment to you. Of course, Diane, that's an amount that would have to work for you. I always make it about them first, but watch what I do. That's an amount, obviously, Diane, that has to work for you. And it also needs to work for me as well. So I put them first, but then because it's a very reasonable thing to do, then I bring myself into it by saying, of course, it has to work for me too. So that way we're able to work together. And so, like I said, we would make a payment to you for a period of time that we would agree on. And within that time frame, I would pay you off everything that I owe you. So I wanted to ask you this question, Diane. I'm telling you, I can do this in my sleep because I've done it tens of thousands of times. I can actually say that now. I had that many years of doing this. So Diane, so what I wanted to do is ask you this question. That hook right there, people straighten up and go, oh, he's going to ask me a question. They get ready, man. They're going to answer your question. Yeah. It's beautiful how this works. So I want to ask you this question, Diane. If I could put something together that makes sense to you, you tell me how reasonable you think how this sounds, Alex.
Okay.
Diane, if I could put something together that actually makes sense to you, would you consider taking a monthly payment until I could pay you off in full?
It flows. Yes, of course. It
flows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if she says, I've never heard of anything like that. I don't know about that. Now people get nervous. I'm not getting nervous. I'm saying, okay, don't look at the no as being a negative. Sometimes the no is because the person doesn't understand. So rather than trying to think for the other person, this is the biggest thing that I got to work with my students with, Alex. Sometimes I got to put a nail on the end of a stick and I got to whack them and say, stop thinking for the other seller. So you got to ask them. I say, hey, Diane, I completely understand. Hey, what's your concern with that? I've got to have them tell me what their concern is. What's my job? Solve the problem. Yeah. So I've got to just know to ask these very non-threatening questions and then be light on my feet to be able to solve the problem. Well, what if I do this and you don't pay me? What if you don't pay a month or something? Oh, literally, I'll say, oh, Diane, yeah, you don't need to worry about that. the attorney, watch this, very, very neutral. The attorney, I didn't say my attorney, it is my attorney, but it's very, very neutral. Oh, Diane, you wouldn't have to worry about that. The attorney is going to do all the paperwork so that we can make this payment legitimately to your bank. Now, I didn't really answer her concern directly.
Right.
Very sideways.
Right.
But what I do is I drop the attorney in there. Subconsciously, she's like, now this is feeling safer. I'm dealing with an objection before she even has it.
What if she turns around and says, well, yeah, but what if you stop making payments? Like, what happens to me then? Or what happens to the house if you were to stop making payments? I had a nightmare with this tenant or X or Y or Z.
Well, first, I want you to know, Diane, that you would be in agreement with me. So it would have nothing to do with who I would put into the house. And I'm going to make those payments. It's not going to be an issue there at all. So I know we can do the what if thing, but I'm telling you from day one, I'm going to have skin in the game. And when I have skin in the game, that means I've got money into this house. Diane, you're not going to get this house back because I've got skin in the game. So that's not something you really have to worry about. You really got to go down that road. Yeah. What we're selling, Alex, is assurance.
Confidence. Yeah.
Confidence. Assurance to the seller. Everything's okay. This is all going to be taken care of.
Right.
I literally, under those few that really press it, I'll say, you're going to have to trust me. Now watch. Now you may think, what? If they don't trust me on the front end, every minute I'm on that phone, I'm wasting my time.
That's right.
So I've got to force it out to say, I understand what you're saying. I just told you I'm going to make the payment. We're going to have the attorney involved. We're going to be in a contract. You're going to have to trust me. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to walk away from a property that I'm investing in.
Scott, from a sales perspective, if you see the homeowner very hesitant, asking a lot of questions, do you start to pull away and say, hey, look, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe this doesn't make sense for you. You should keep the house, XYZ.
I call it having one foot out the door.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I play this with my students. So if this is me and this is the seller and the seller pulls away, the old style of sales is you lean in. That's the worst thing to do because what are they going to do? They're going to
keep pushing back. Yeah.
As soon as I feel that they're moving away, I move away.
Right.
And I'll even call them on it and say, it sounds like maybe you're not very comfortable with this, or this is just not what you want to do. Do I have that right or no? I want to give them the choice. Do I have that right or no?
Right.
Person says, well, I just don't understand what you're talking about. Oh, that's great. Once I'm convinced that they're inflexible, that's when I'm going to basically get off the phone. Because I cannot work with someone that's inflexible, which, by the way, just to let you know, most people in the creative financing world are not flexible. But we don't need a lot of these people to say yes to build a thriving, stinking business because it's so lucrative. It really, really is. So most people want to sell traditional. Okay. That's why I only want to be on the phone with them like 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. And the way that I get there that quickly is, hey, Alex, hey, what can you tell me about the house? Is it vacant? Is it rented? Or are you occupying it? Because that's going to help me to know what direction to go in so I can ask this question. It's really a decoy in one sense. So I can ask this question. Hey, Alex, if I can put something together that makes sense to you, would you consider taking a monthly payment until I could pay you off in full?
Yeah.
If I can't get past that question, I've got to segue to my other tools.
Yeah. And you're asking that within the first 3 minutes of the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
I'm not asking them about their dog. I'm not asking, what room that their middle child was raised.
Or what condition the kitchen's in or anything like that doesn't really matter.
Not yet. Yeah. Not yet. Not till I know they're flexible. Then I build rapport.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it. How are you determining how much skin to have in the game? What are you offering in terms of terms, right? Yeah. Rate, length, the bells and whistles of the offer. Like, what is determining, like, do you have a typical starting point, right? I mean, you and I both know, and you've probably done some 0% seller finance deals. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways you can slice it, right? How are you determining your starting point once the seller says, yeah, that's reasonable, I'll consider taking payments over time?
So again, it feels a little too manufactured for me to come in and say, here's what I'm trying to accomplish in this call before I call. I don't know until I know what the circumstances are, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you, for example, I don't know if you want to date this particular podcast, but we'll just say it's November. It's November 14th.
Okay.
And I've got this right here, the date, November 14th. About an
see
hour,
it.
I was on the call with a lead. This is what my assistant did for me. She went on Facebook Marketplace, and I taught her how to look for non-realtors. And there are some ways to do that, okay? And so she finds this lead. This guy, Jake, owns, I didn't even know it was a mobile home. It's really a manufactured home.
Okay.
And it's on leased land, which I have no interest in whatsoever. So anyway, I call this guy. We actually get on the phone. He starts telling me about the property because on Facebook Marketplace, he only said what town it was in,
Okay.
but would not give the address. So I have this conversation with him. So he ends up having this manufactured home. He's saying he's selling it for $52,000. I'm already nodding my head going, what am I going to do with this thing? But I start asking some more questions. And he's telling me that he's living in the house. He has to relocate. He's just trying to get a down payment for his next house. Initially was $23,000. I said, is there any debt on the property? He said, yeah, I'm looking at it right here, $29,900 on the debt.
Okay.
I said, okay, well, let me tell you what we would typically do. And I don't even know that I even want this yet, but I got to follow through on the swing. Don't think for the other person. And you're not going to believe how this thing is panning out right now. In fact, I just texted him. He's texting me pictures of the place right now because I am interested, and I'm going to tell you why. But I didn't know this going in. All right. Oh, it's a manufactured home on leased land. What am I going to do with that? So we talked through it. I said, so typically what we would do is we would make the mortgage payment. You're telling me you owe about 30 grand. What's that payment? He said, got it right here, $427 a month.
Okay.
I said, is that a PITI? He said, yeah, principal, interest,
Taxes, insurance.
Okay.
Yep.
He says, yes. I said, okay. I said, listen, I'll get you true profit. I got to know what your absolute lowest is. And he said, okay, the lowest, he said, I got to have 20 grand for my down payment on my next house. So now I got him at 49,000. My plan would be, if I can work this deal out, I want that mortgage for as long as I can have it. I will make no commitment as to when I'll pay that mortgage off.
Right. No prepayment penalty, essentially. And you're going to try to extend yeah.
So I own 4 lots, ironically enough, in a place called Gaffney, South Carolina. I said, hey, let me ask you, how far is your town where you are from Gaffney? He said, 30 to 40 minutes. I said, really? I said, I said, well, I got 2 open lots right now. So I'm thinking he just wants 20 grand. He wants out. This thing was built in 2014. So it's fairly, I started looking at some of the pictures. It looks really nice. I would just have to pick it up, put it onto another lot about a half an hour or so away.
Okay.
I'd have to put a septic in. That could be a few bucks. But I'm pricing this out. I probably can get about 180 grand for that, between the lot, putting the septic in and all that stuff. I could probably get in my first year, putting a rent-to-own buyer in there. I could have an option price for $179,900. So if I buy it for $49,000, 20 grand for the septic, say another 10 grand to get everything else prepped on that lot, I don't have a lot of money into it.
Right.
And I can put a tag on that for $179,900. I already ran my numbers. I can probably get $1,400 for rent, cash flow, maybe $400 to $500 a month. I'd want to hold on to that thing as long as I possibly could. I had no idea. This was a snowflake. I've never deal structured anything like this before. It just so happened I'm in the same state and I go, I just happen to have these 2 lots side by side. Now I'm going, after we do this deal, guess what I'm going to go look for?
The next one right by
another mobile home. I'm going to go find someone else's mobile home, pick it up and go put it on the next lot and do the same thing. And I literally could make $200-300 grand on this. So you got to listen. You got to keep your options open. I don't always know. My structure is just start with owner financing, and then you go from there. Okay. If this guy said no to that, maybe I would have done a complete full cash purchase if my numbers worked.
Yeah.
And potentially they could, even in this situation. Even better that I can keep the mortgage in place. That's what I want, because that's going to amortize.
Yeah.
It means that the loan is being bought down, that someone else is going to pay for.
Yep.
The money I bring into the deal is private money, people that know me, like me, and trust me. So I got a good low interest rate on that. Everything I get in this scenario is free.
I love that, Scott. Let me ask you, man, and there's no right or wrong here per se, but a lot of people teach the multiple offer strategy, right? Where you're presenting the seller with 2 or 3, maybe a cash offer, a seller finance, and maybe a hybrid. Why do you choose not to do that, and you kind of take this approach versus, hey, here are 3 different ways? Is it because you don't want to box yourself into those 2 or 3 offers? and you want to just kind of go down the line based on their situation? Or what's the reason you opt or you don't prefer to do a multiple approach?
I am doing the multiple, but I'm not doing it on the front end. I'm doing it by pulling out the next arrow in my quiver. Person says, I'm just not comfortable doing that.
Fair enough.
You're going to own my house and you're going to have, see, I want to own the house more than anything else. If that's not an option for me, let's say as I'm talking to them, I realize this is an ugly house. So, I didn't know that. And it's going to need 60 grand and it's in another state. I'm not rehabbing that house. I live in New Hampshire. I'm not rehabbing a house in South Carolina. I don't care what anyone tells. I'm not doing it. So what I'll do is I'll shift. See, I don't know if a cash offer makes sense until I know something about the circumstances in the house. Why not go for the top price first and then you back down? It's all based on language. I'm not conveying to them, this is how I buy. I'm saying this is typically how I do it. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's not going to, I see. So it needs all this work. Oh, it's been vacant for 3 years. Oh, it had a fire in the back. Oh, so it sounds like there's a lot of work. Yeah. Well, listen, you know what? I think the best option here would be, let's talk about a cash purchase. Because I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a contract and I'm going to wholesale that thing out to somebody else.
Yeah.
That's probably my only other exit strategy. But I don't know that until I know the circumstances. So if I started at the front end, hey, I can do this, or this, but I don't know that it's an ugly house yet. Why? I find that counterproductive. I think you cut yourself short. That's just my experience.
No, which is, and it makes so much sense. I like the approach of you do have multiple offers for them, but you're not presenting them all at once. And sometimes you go to I don't know if you've been to a Cheesecake Factory or a restaurant that has like 27 pages and there's all these options. And inevitably, what tends to happen? It delays the decision-making process. I find when I go to a Cheesecake Factory, I take longer to decide what I want. Yes. If I go to whatever and there's your standard menu, because you have so many options that you're considering all these different things. So that's something to consider if you're out there presenting multiple offers all at once versus Scott's approach, which is hey, okay, this arrow didn't work. Let me try this one. Let me go here. Let me go there. And the seller is dictating it.
Yes. And let me give you another idea. So let's say when I'm doing the owner financing, the person says, I just don't want to do that. And I say, okay, tell me what your concern is. I go, well, you're going to own the house and I'm going to have the mortgage in my name. I go, yep. I don't apologize for it. Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, there's no way that's ever going to happen on God's green earth. Not going to happen. Oh, well, hey, Alex, how about if we did this? I think I could offer the same thing to you, the same kind of a term. Why don't we just do a lease option? You maintain ownership. I'll lease it and I'll have a legal option to buy it within a time frame that we can agree on, which, by the way, Alex, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to buy that house. I just need time. I want to work with you on your price. See what I did? If I offer the lease option and that wasn't even an issue, why would I do that?
Right. Yeah. You'd rather have the seller financing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I can work down the line that way, but it requires listening. That's the greatest asset that you have. Just listen, be you on the phone. You got to learn some of these techniques, and a lot of it is language. This is about language patterns, right? The less you say, the better. As soon as you start educating the seller, open the window in the house that you're in, open it as wide as you can, and just fling your phone out the window because you're wasting. And they may even be nice to you, but you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Just start out. You cannot educate the seller. You can make it sound like you are. You want to be careful with that, but you want to say less and only answer the questions that they're asking. We are notorious to answer their question in 3 more they never even asked, and that's a problem. Most people that get into those patterns are complaining, I bought into this program and it doesn't work. Yeah, well, you won't shut up. I don't know how else to say it. I know I'm being blunt here, Alex, but I want your folks to hear this. One of the best things you can do is just shut up. Ask specific questions, use these language patterns, and watch what happens.
Yeah, dude.
Ability people rise to the top. Those are the people you want to talk to.
Gold. The best salespeople ask questions and listen. If you find yourself forget most of the talking. If you find yourself doing half the talking, you're probably going down the wrong path. Probably.
Yes, sir. Yep.
I think that's a general good.
I think you're right.
To follow.
Yep.
Yeah. Got it. Scott, man, I can talk to you forever. Obviously, this show was a little bit shorter than the last one, but man, we probably have. I don't know. I want to say the last one was 40 to 50 minutes or so. And we got about an hour to an hour and 10 minutes, I'm guessing here, worth of just pure, like, creative deal structuring gold. Like, you have
Hmm.
given enough people more than enough information to be able to go implement this in their business. Now, what I would encourage people to do is go back and listen to part one, listen to part two, because
Hmm.
my big takeaway from this is how you say something, the language patterns, the words is just as important, if not more than anything else, than what you're actually presenting, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
understanding the seller situation and then taking out that first quiver, starting with owner financing, presenting it in a way using the words typically, normally, usually, right? And not boxing yourself into a corner, which gives you flexibility to shift,
Yes.
maneuver, and back to the football,
Well
calling.
said.
It's what does a quarterback do when they get to the line of scrimmage and they see the defense in a formation that's not like, hey, they've sniffed out our play. Okay, you call an audible. Like, let's change the play on the fly. That
Yes.
you're the quarterback here, right? And you're just kind of like reading the seller, aka the defense, and what they're putting out there. So
Yep.
I don't know if that
Yep.
analogy works, but it works in my head, so we'll go with
It
it.
works for me too. We are bringing the solution. You can't bring a solution if you haven't listened to what the problem is.
Yeah,
So that's
so
why this
good,
is important.
dude.
Really good to be with you, Alex, man.
So good, man.
You're awesome.
Tell us again how people can reach out to you and find out more about potentially working with you or just kind of following you in your journey.
Best thing, you know what? Just go over to Facebook. I'm going to give you the group that I have there. It's a free group.
Okay.
And I post, I do lives, I do deal structuring, a lot of the stuff we're talking about now. And then through that platform, you can always reach out to me. You can private message me. We can always coordinate a call or whatever. But it's My Deal Inc. I'm sure you'll add this in your link
Yep.
thing. It's My Deal Inc. INC, period. That's all you got to type in on Facebook. And you'll see me a lot on there. I do a lot of stuff on there. So we'll be able to make contact that way. I try to bring as much content as I can. I want to help anyone that I can. And we'll just go from there, man. Okay.
Well, dude, I'm grateful we've connected and started building a friendship. Thank you for just the insight and sharing with us like years of experience and learning this. I'm sure through sometimes trial and tribulations and sometimes failing and kind of figuring out what works, what doesn't. But man, I love your simple approach to be able to like get to the pain, get to their situation
Yes.
within the first 3 minutes. Then you can start building rapport, pulling out the right arrows and just structuring a deal that works for them, but also works for you. So
Yeah. Hey, just to hold this up, that lead sheet, I'm hoping to make about 90 grand or so. This thing, one phone call, 10 minutes. We'll see. Not going to do a follow up, but anyway. But once you know this stuff, I'm telling you, this is fun stuff.
yeah,
I can't wait to get on this.
I love it. By the way, here's how we're going to end this show. This works on any asset. I don't care if you're listening to this and you're in single family, or if you listen to this and you're pursuing storage, if you're one of my Storage Wins coaching clients, if you're looking at multifamily, like seller financing and creative deal structuring works on anything. You can do it on a bottle of water. You can do it on a piece of real estate. You can do it on a business. That's
you can buy a cow. You can buy a cow doing creative financing. As long as there's value, it's about two people coming together and working something out. It really is.
Right.
That's what this is.
Yep, that's it. Awesome, guys. Well, hey, listen, I really appreciate everybody tuning in, giving us your most valuable asset, which is your time, your energy, your attention. So thank you for investing with us. And look, this is always going to be my goal and aim, is to bring the best people in this industry that are just have an open heart and are going to share with you everything they know about a particular subject or topic. Now, obviously, there's only but so much we can cover on a 30 to 60-minute podcast. So continue to plug in so that I can get people like Scott in front of you. And if there's anything I can do to help you in your journey, reach out. Let me know. If you've been following, you know that I want to help. I want to give just like Scott. And so check out Scott's Facebook group, My Deal Inc. And then make sure that you're subscribed to the Flip Empire show so that every single Monday morning you're notified when new shows get released. And I got something cool that I'm cooking up here that I'll probably divulge what I've been working on here in early Q1. So with that being said, guys, that is my hook and my little tease for you. Trust me, you're going to want to know what's going on with the podcast and what we're going to be doing moving forward. So Scott, my man, appreciate you, brother. And guys, I will see you on the next show.
Peace.
All right. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. Guys, here is the great thing about what Scott has shared is that you can use this when speaking to a motivated seller, of trying to buy their home, you can use this speaking to a mom and pop storage owner operator, because this is exactly what I do and what we do and what our clients in our Storage Wins coaching community do. Speaking of, if you want to learn more about storage, I have some free training that I put together for you, along with some valuable resources, the exact letter that I use to have acquired several storage facilities, along with a few other goodies in there that are very valuable, no strings attached. Shoot me a text. Put the word storage and send a text to 305-318-6213. 305-318-6213. We'll shoot you over the resources. And if you're interested in having a conversation about storage, just go to www.storagewins.com, WINS, storagewins.com. And if I like what you have to say, we'll schedule a brief call. We'll talk and go from there. So have an incredible day, and make sure to tune into part 2, which is coming next week with my buddy Scott. Take care.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
What's going on, guys? We're back with another Flip Empire podcast interview with my good buddy Scott, who is somebody who I've gotten to know now over the last several months. He and I are in a community of other real estate coaches, people that have a heart for wanting to pour into others and give back. And, you know, I've always been a big believer of we should have one hand up to a coach or a mentor growing, and then we should have one hand down to people bringing them up and sharing the knowledge, experience, and resources that we've been fortunate to acquire and passing that along, because everybody starts somewhere, right? And guys, today we're going to be talking, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Scott here in a moment. We're going to be talking about all things creative financing. Scott is a ninja when it comes to creative financing. And this is one of those tools that if you only know one way to do a deal, and that's by making a cash offer, you are leaving a lot of money on the table. Scott's going to share with you practical steps and ways that you guys can take deals that you may have just thrown in the trash or leads that are sitting in your CRM, and how you can monetize those through the power of creative financing and seller financing, and just understanding how to be a transaction engineer and structure different deals in different ways. So Scott, my brother, hopefully I didn't steal your thunder too much, man, but it's great to have you on the podcast.
I'm still like, oh man, ninja. Wow. Hey, man, I appreciate the compliment. Listen, let me tell you, I am so honored to be on your platform. You are the rock star, man. And I know you've got quite an audience. I know you're a real talented guy. And the stuff that I'm going to talk about, you know, creative financing, I know that you already know some of this stuff for sure. But it really is an honor. Thank you for the invite.
No, man, I'm looking forward to it. And Scott, I think you probably know this about me, and if you don't, you will soon, is that I never go into an interview or an event or a conversation with the mindset that I know it all. In fact, 99% of the time, I either learn something or I pick up something that's a little bit of a tweak that now
Sure.
I put into my arsenal,
Yeah.
brother. So that's the benefit of hosting a podcast, is I get to learn right alongside the audience as well. And even if it's
Great.
something I know, sometimes it's validation or sometimes it's just said in a different way. So brother, I'm a sponge. Why don't we start here? I think most people, I would venture to guess, understand why creative financing can be so powerful, right? Turning sellers into the bank and creative deal structuring. So I don't want to spend too much time on like, why is it important? Again, I want to bank on the assumption that most people understand that creative financing just opens up more doors to get deals done that otherwise might not be possible because it can't be financed through a bank, or because maybe you might not have money, whatever the case might be. What I would love to get into is, tactically speaking, where I find in my experience, and you're the expert, you're the one that coaches people on creative financing, but I find that people get hung up on speaking to owners and delivering or pitching seller financing. Can we kind of start there? I know it's really tactical in nature, but I'd love for people to walk away from this short podcast with like, hey, here are a few ways that I can approach sellers and introduce the concept of seller financing or creative financing.
I think I can dialogue that for you. I mean, I've been doing this for years, but let me say this first about the creative financing. A lot of people kind of look at like creative financing as this little side niche. You know, here you have real estate, you get all different kinds of real estate, or you can maybe specialize just in creative financing. I would say that creative financing embraces all of real estate. It's not a separate niche. This should always be like not just an arrow in your quiver. It should be a bunch of them in there, because there's 100 ways that you can have a conversation with a seller or a buyer where you can agree on how to proceed in a way that's creative. So it doesn't always have to be the financing end. It could be all kinds of ways you can have that conversation. So with that said, I think the scariest thing for the investor, not just for the newbie, because I work with a lot of people, even people that are doing a bunch of stuff in real estate. Just how do you, like you were saying, how do you even open up the conversation to talk about creative financing? Well, one of the words that I don't like in what you said was the word pitch. I'm not pitching anything. There's no pitching. I'm not even selling anything. Now you might say, well, Scott, at the end of the day, you sort of are. Okay, I'll go that far with you. Yes, I'm selling this idea of I want to buy your house. Let's work together so I can do business. But it's not salesy. I'm really not selling in the classical sense. What I'm wanting is a conversation where we can open up here a little bit to see if I can find out if there's any, whether if it's a pain source or inconvenience. And both of those can feel the same way to the beholder. Right?
Yeah.
Someone that's inconvenienced can still feel like, oh, it's so much pain. No, it's just that they're inconvenienced, but that might be enough of a motivation to be able to have that conversation. So what do we got to do? We got to find out before we think about how to have the conversation on creative. Is there anything that's distorted in any way? So my opener is what really sets everything up. Now, I don't know what you do and the people that you work with. I'm not a big script kind of a guy.
Neither am I.
I still have students begging me for some scripting. So for your folks that are listening right now, you want a script, just write down what I'm saying right now, because this is it.
But
I'm going to give you a conceptual script that's very, very simple in your head.
Okay.
But you've got to get the door open first for this thing to make sense. Because the problem is, if I'm so stuck to a script, I'm no longer listening to the other person. And I got to engage that other person to know, did I identify anything that's distorted? You know what I mean by distorted? Something that's an inconvenience or a pain, something that they need help with without me ever talking about helping them with those words. I'm never going to say, hey, this is your lucky day, man. I'm here to help you.
Right.
You've just lost that deal, because they're going to feel very vulnerable under those circumstances.
Or like you're trying to take advantage of them for some reason, right?
Of course, like you say, oh man, I don't need help. This guy thinks he has to help me. He's going to steal my house.
Yeah.
Number one, couple of principles. I never use the term investor. Investors are scary, hairy people with big teeth and big fingernails who have more money than God and all this other stuff. I don't want to use that term investor. I try to go as local with my term as I can. Hey, I'm just a local home buyer. I'm just a schmo, man. I'm just like anybody else. I'm just trying to do some business. I'm looking to buy my next house, kind of a thing. Okay. I'm up here on the 10,000 foot because it really depends on what the lead source is and what I'm really looking for. But generally speaking, my opening line is going to go something like this. So the phone rings. Alex, you answer the phone, and I say, so you say hello, and I say, hello, Alex. Now, listen, if I have a lead sheet or I have something in front of me that says this phone number, the person with this phone number is named Alex.
Don't ask, is Alex there?
Yeah. So a guy answers the phone. Hi, is this Alex? Oh, Alex is going, oh, look, I shouldn't have answered the phone, man.
Hang up.
You're starting wrong. Yeah. You're the one that's distorted at this point, right?
Yep, that's right.
So for those thinker brain minds out there, you're like, but what if a lady answers the phone? I'd say, hi, hey, I was just calling looking for Alex about his house at 123 Main Street. Is he there? That just came out in about 2.9 seconds. Very concise, oh, hey, Alex, someone wants to buy your house, right? So she's going to go get Alex on the phone, or maybe she's just the spouse. Okay. Right. So my opener goes something like this. Hi, Alex. Hey, this is Scott calling about your house at 123 Main Street. I see that it's for sale. Do you have a couple of minutes to talk? I might chat. I use as the lower I can go on my vernacular with my language. I want to talk very, very basic. I don't want to sound sophisticated. I've got some students that want to sound like they have this huge real estate business and they're highly educated. Don't do it. It's going to work against you.
That's right. I agree.
Real scale language. So Alex says, hey, I have a few minutes. I say, great. Hey, so you are looking to sell it then, right? Now I want to come in with questions. Everything I can make statements and put right on the end of all kinds of things, and that keeps me in control of the conversation. So Alex, you say, well, yeah, definitely, it's still for sale. Great. Well, hey, Alex, what can you tell me about the house? This is where everyone stops. What can you tell me about the house? Well, I asked a question. You don't want to do that. I don't care right now about the floor, the roof, where the dog died in the living room. I don't need
Doesn't matter.
Stuff. So I say, hey, Alex, what can you tell me about the house? This is gold right here. Listen. Alex, what can you tell me about the house? Is it vacant? Is it rented? Or are you occupying it? Why would I want to ask one of those or any of those questions? What am I looking for? I'm looking for pain or inconvenience.
Mm-hmm.
Alex goes, it's vacant. I go, ooh, vacant. Now I know I don't have to guess. Oh, gee, I bet this guy's thinking. I don't know what this guy's thinking.
Yeah.
But look at what my questions are. What other options are there? Well, did it burn down? I suppose I could ask that. But I mean, those three options are gonna capture almost any scenario that a person finds themselves in. Now I know where to go. Oh, it's vacant. Well, Alex, tell me, how long's the house been vacant for? Oh, it's been vacant for a year and a half. Year and a half. Wow. Hey, Alex, why has it been vacant for so long? Well, you know what? My mom died and we were going to rehab the house. You probably have heard these stories, right? We were going to rehab the house and we did a little bit of work and then we just kind of got overwhelmed and it's been a year and a half, but we really just got to get rid of the house. What did I just identify?
Their pain point.
Now I know the pain point.
Yeah.
So all my scripting is doing is all you need to know to open the door is, hi, Alex. Hey, Scott giving you a call about your house at 123 Main Street. I see that it's for sale. Hey, do you got a couple of minutes to talk? You say, yes. Oh, great. Well, Alex, hey, so it is for sale, right? Oh, yeah, definitely for sale. Okay, great. Hey, so what can you tell me about the house? Vacant? Rented? Or are you occupying it? All right, so let's go to the other scenario. Person says, oh, no, it's rented. Oh, rented. So it sounds like you might be an investor. Is that right? That's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. You know what? I inherited that property from my dad about 4 years ago. And I got to tell you, I've been miserable ever since I started renting it. What did I just discover?
Pain point.
He's telling me I just got to open it. I got to just open that door a little bit, let him fill the vacuum.
Yeah.
So this is how my mental scripting works. Now, all I'm trying to do when I'm talking to my seller is I'm either trying to qualify them or disqualify them. That's my only reason for being on the phone.
Yeah, that's it. One thing, Scott, that I want to mention is you started by saying, I don't like the word pitch. People sometimes get intimidated by the sales process. Guys, this is a sales process, but all Scott's doing is asking questions. Like, so take the pressure off. All you got to do is ask questions to qualify or disqualify. That's it.
Yeah. All right. So let me go to the scary one, right? So you're going to have some listener out there going, yeah, but what if? Okay. So what if? So I get on the phone. I say, hey, Alex, this is Scott calling about your house at 123 Main Street. Hey, I see that it's for sale. Hey, is this a good time to talk? And Alex goes, oh, I only got about 30 seconds, so you better spit out whatever you want, and it better be a full offer. Hey, Alex, what's this? This is where I'm always going to go. Maybe I shouldn't say Alex. I don't want anyone to think that this is you. You would never.
It's all good, man.
You would never be like that.
I think people hopefully know that we're role playing, unless they just happen to like randomly go 10 minutes into the podcast. But
right, I'd be like, whoa, Alex. It sounds like maybe I caught you at the wrong time. Hey, listen, how about if we just pick another time where we've got some time to actually talk? I'd like to learn some stuff about the house. Doesn't sound like this would be the right time for us to do that. Is that right? That's a question. I made a statement, and at the very end, I go, is that right? And then I want to make a decision from there. Number one thing I'm looking for with anyone that I'm speaking to is some mechanism in me that says, I think this person might have some flexibility.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me on the phone. No flexibility, I'm getting off the phone. Okay, so that's how I handle the scary. So I'm never going to be caught off guard. If the guy's grumpy, I'll actually call him on it, or the lady. I'd be like, wow, Bob or Diane, sounds like you're having a really rough day today. I did not mean to interrupt you. Hey, would it just be better for me to call you another day this week? Now, half the time they're going to say, yeah, just give me a call back, or I don't care. The other half, they're actually going to apologize. They're going to say, yeah, you know what? I'm really sorry, man. No, my frustration is not with you. And I say, hey, no worries, man. I'm just very, very interested. Watch this. And I'm always using this language. I'm just very, very interested in buying your house. What I'm not saying is I'm interested in your house. Those are two very different forms of communication.
That's right. One is saying you're serious and you're not here to waste any time. You're legit. Another is, hey, I'm potentially a tire kicker, and you've probably already talked to a bunch of these people.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Tire kicker. Yeah. I don't want to. I want the hair on their arms to stand up. Like I think I may be talking to my buyer.
Yeah.
That's what I want emotionally for them to feel.
Right. So from this point, Scott, one area where I find people get tripped up is how and when do they open the door for to see if they're a candidate for creative financing?
Yeah. So now let me bring you to, because I'm bringing you right through my mental script and what I'm doing. So now Alex says, "Oh yeah, no, it's a rental. I've had it for 4 years. It's been a pain in the butt. This last tenant that just left, they kind of beat up the house a little bit. I'm still putting windows in and new carpeting. It's about 10 grand. I just don't want to be a landlord anymore." I go, I'm going to validate everything I can and say, "Oh yeah, I get you. Listen, I know being a landlord is not." If you hung out with me day to day, Alex, you'd be like, at first I sound smooth, but you'd be like, "Oh, that Scott guy, he's so stinking boring. He says the same stuff all the time." And I do. It's the same, what I call the same language loop.
Yeah.
So I say, yep, I'm going to affirm his pain. Right? I'm going to say, "Oh, listen, I know, being a landlord is not for the faint of heart. I own some properties and I'm a landlord too. It's not the easiest thing in the world. But you know what, Alex? Hey, let me tell you how I typically buy." Again, this is gold. You're getting it right out of the horse's mouth. Okay. Hey, Alex, let me just tell you how I typically buy. Some of my favorite words are typically, normally, and usually.
What do you
Very
what are you communicating like underneath those words? Is it like, hey, this is standard practice. This is common. This is what everybody does. That's what they're
That's right. Yes. But what they're not hearing is, here's the only way that I buy,
right.
because I want to be able to backpedal, because I can buy in a lot of different ways. Okay. So I can, to pardon the phrase, but I can skin the cat in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I say, so Alex, hey, so let me just tell you how I typically buy. And if it makes sense for us to, continue with the conversation, I'd love to be able to do that. And if not, certainly no worries at all. Look at that technique.
You took the pressure off.
Took the pressure off. That's what I call 1 foot out the door. Yep. It's a leaning away a little bit, because now there's no pressure. There's a leaning away a little bit, and a flexible person will lean in. If they are flexible and saying, "Well, maybe I want to hear this guy," they're not going to lean away. Yeah. As soon as my seller or a buyer leans away from me, the worst thing that I could do is lean into them, because they're going to lean right. I'm going to lean back.
Yeah.
If someone sounds like they're not interested, I'm going to call them and say, "Doesn't sound like maybe this is resonating with you in any way. Do I have that right?" Person says, yeah, I don't think so. I'd say, "Hey, listen, completely understand that, Alex. Hey, let me ask you this. That line, 'let me ask you this,' is a hook, because it's telling them, I'm going to ask you a question." And you know what people do when they get that hook? They prepare themselves. "He's going to ask me a question. I guess I'm going to have to answer him." Perfect.
Yeah. Guys, and this is not live, right? But like, I'm hoping that people are picking up what Scott's putting down in terms of like the nuance, the mindset, the psychology behind the questions, because that's everything. If you can just understand that at a 30,000 foot view, you don't necessarily have to use the exact words that, in fact, I would tell you, use your language, but you do want to dumb it down. You don't want to be throwing out industry jargon, and you don't want to be using like creative financing and seller. Like, just dumb it down and speak at their level, but speak in a way that's comfortable for you. More than anything, what I'm hoping you get from what the wisdom Scott's sharing, understand the framework, understand what we're accomplishing here with the types of questions he's asking.
Yeah.
So
I say, well said. Yes. You got to use your own wording, because if you stay authentically you in the conversation, you will come off authentic.
That's right.
If you try to sound like me, you are not going to fool the other person, and your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend will flick you in the head anyway and go, "You sound weird. Don't sound weird." Just people already like you for who you are, right?
Yeah.
So just be deliberate with what you're doing, which is what we're discussing about. How do you deliberately have these conversations where you stay in control?
Yeah.
I say to Alex, so Alex, let me tell you how I typically buy, how I usually buy. I buy with what I call, it's just owner financing. Notice the downplay. It's just owner financing. It's nothing to be concerned about. That's all insinuated in that, right? I just buy what's called owner financing, another downplay. And all that means is, big downplay, all that means is that I would make a payment to you monthly. Of course, Alex, it would have to be a number that makes sense to you. And to be honest with you, obviously it would have to be a number that makes sense to me. What I'm really saying, Alex, is that the number would have to make sense to both of us. I could do that. You could wake me up at 2 a.m. and those words would come out of my mouth because I do it all the time.
It was like butter coming out of your mouth, Scott. Like
Butter, baby. It
yeah.
even dripped. It even dripped off my chin a little bit. Like, yes, it's so good.
That was smooth, man. That was
right.
Smooth. Yeah.
Because what did I just do in that? I just leveled the playing field.
Yeah.
I'm coming off. It's not salesy. I'm not twisting like, you got to give me the best price you could possibly give me. I already know the seller wants the most. I certainly want the least. Only on one hand do I want the least. I might pay a premium price if I can get my terms. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
For me, it's the terms that make the deal something that's worthwhile going after. The seller doesn't know that yet unless we have that conversation. So watch. So this all comes out. So yeah, so this is the way I typically buy owner financing. All that means is that I would make a payment to you. It would obviously have to be a number that makes sense to you, Alex. Of course, it would have to be a number that makes sense to me too. What I'm really saying is it just has to be a number that works for both of us. And basically what we do is we agree on a period of time. And then within that time frame, I'll pay you off what I owe you in full. So Alex, what I wanted to ask you was this. It's another hook. I'm setting you up for the question. So Alex, now that I said that, I wanted to ask you this. If I can put something together that makes sense to you, is this something you would consider doing?
Or probably not.
Or probably not.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. You can play it either way.
Yeah.
And yeah, or probably not. Exactly right. And that person's going to tell you. And it almost doesn't matter what they say. Don't be afraid of the no.
Yeah.
They go, because that's a new concept for a lot of people. But imagine when they say yes. Yeah, I'm open to that. I'd say, okay, great. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the house and the circumstances with the house. So, like I said, I make a monthly payment to you. So, hey, Alex, is there any debt on the house? Is there like a mortgage on the house, or is it free and clear? I always like to give a choice. What you don't want to do is say, hey, Alex, would it be okay with you if you sort of kind of told me what you might owe on the house?
Yeah. Man, it's not so much what you say, but it's how you ask the question makes so much of a difference. Yeah. Right. If you speak, like, look at the way that you just delivered that was very shy, timid, scared, versus delivering it with confidence and then giving them an and or choice. Instead of asking how much do you owe, which can be a very threatening question, and doing it in a very timid, shy way, that's going to get shot down more times than not. But you just delivered the question with confidence and you gave them a choice.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So and there's no pressure in the way that I'm doing it. I'm almost giving an implied rationale why I'm asking. It's just implied. They're the ones filling in the blank. I'm not telling them why I'm asking necessarily.
Yeah.
But the way that I learned how to do this, it's not just this technique. It's what I do in business. Is I have learned to remove permission language from my, if I can use the big word, from my vernacular, from my day-to-day talking with people. I'm removing permission language. Hey, Alex, would it be okay with you if you could tell me if you have a mortgage or not?
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, is it all right with you if you tell me, what your mortgage payment is?
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, is it okay for me to call you maybe like next week sometime? That's all permission language stuff. Yeah. You will be the subconscious of the other person at the other end is, I don't think I want to deal with this guy.
That's right.
Just timid. It doesn't sound like maybe you even know what you're doing. Instead, and it isn't that I'm going like this, although I am being assertive, but I want to be assertive without sounding like I'm pushy. So the way I say it is, hey, let me tell you how I do it. Hey, Alex, let me tell you how I typically buy. I'm not asking you if you're okay with that. Now, at some point I do say, so Alex, what I wanted to ask you was, if I could put something together that makes sense to you, is that something you would consider? See, that's not a permission question. It's a question, but not permission. Hey, if I do this for you, would you consider maybe doing it? Alex goes, yeah, I don't think so. Great. I'm getting a little closer to my yes. I say, okay, hey, Alex, completely understand. Hey, is there a concern with considering doing it this way? All right. So the driving factor behind that is, and I learned this a long time ago from an incredible mentor in my life, stop thinking for the other person. I know what you guys are thinking in your head. You're on the phone. You're like, oh, this person would never do this. And oh, no, they probably want all their money. You think the person you're talking to on the phone is thinking just like you, and you got to get that part out of your head. No, Stop it.
Yeah, because you don't know where they're at in their particular situation.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do it all the time, Alex. We're thinking for people I catch myself all the time. Oh, it's all subconscious. Oh, I bet I know what that guy's thinking. No, you don't. You're making it all up. So if you're going to make it all up, why not make it positive? I bet this guy, I'm going to be the one that saves the day for this guy. If you're going to make it up, that's all I'm suggesting, because that would give you a much different posture on the phone.
Man, that's wisdom
Make
right
it
there.
up positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Oof, man, there's guys, this is, I don't know, episode 770 something, right? And
you rock star, you.
No, man, dude, you're calling me out. That's not how I mean it. I mean it. You're so funny, man. I mean it from the perspective that I don't know that we've had anybody on here quite go through the level of depth in terms of like the specific questions in the order, the psychology that you've broken down, Scott. And this isn't the first time we talk about creative financing and seller financing, but man, you've broken it down in a way that it's very non-threatening. You're explaining why you're asking certain questions, and not just the questions you're asking, but how you're delivering the questions is so important. And everything has been by you setting the frame up here, but making it, again, I keep using the words non-threatening because that's what it feels like to me. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of an Alex who's interested in potentially selling my house on terms, right? Or on owner financing. When people kind of buck at your questions and they're like, no, I don't want owner finance, or no, I don't want to seller finance. I heard you ask a follow-up, and what you're trying to do is drill down specifically into maybe why. If they say something like, if you get the sense that they just don't fully understand what that means or what some of the benefits to them might be, do you get into education mode at a very like third grade level, or how do you kind of navigate trying to put your finger on what the main objection is?
Yeah. So I'm still going to, I guess at the end of the day, I'm still trying to figure out what their real objection is. So a little bit of training, but you want to be really careful. As soon as we go into teaching training mode, let me just give it to you. It's all subconscious at the other end. They don't even know they're thinking this. We're just protected this way within our brain. What they're hearing is begging. I will educate you into why this is the best thing that you could possibly do. That's a form of begging. I'm telling you, it takes a discipline to accept what I'm saying. Most people will buck me on this, but I've been doing this for years, and I'm telling you, trust what I'm telling you about how to have that approach.
Yeah.
So if I suspect that they don't know, so this opens the door for me to say this: never try not to misinterpret inflexibility with misunderstanding.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Right. So what does the confused mind always say?
No.
So it means that you have to have some level of EQ. And what I mean by that is, if you understand IQ and EQ,
emotional intelligence.
That's where I'm not saying this in a bragging way. That's where I excel. You don't want me to be an engineer, because whatever it is that's broken, I'm not going to be able to fix it. I am not cut from that cloth.
Yeah.
But I got a really high EQ. And the way that you get a high EQ is you got to listen. You have to have genuine interest in other human beings.
Yeah.
That's key to, I think, succeeding, especially in the business that we're in, because we're in the real estate business, which is to say that we're in the people business. That's what we're in.
And Scott, I would go as far as to say, sorry to interrupt you, brother.
No, good.
A lot of people get jammed up because they're too in their head about trying to get the deal and make money. And they're not focused on that particular problem. They're looking inward about what they're going to get and receive, and they're not focused outwardly in terms of trying to provide a solution and solve a problem.
And so guess what happens too? Perfectly said. So when you're really motivated more on the inside, like, I got to get this deal. I got to make some money. I mean, I got to get as much as I can possibly get. That energy, you're never going to hide that from the person at the other end of that phone. It's all subconscious, but it's going to come out somewhere. Desperation is going to come out.
Yeah.
And you know what desperation sounds like to the person at the other end? Begging. It's begging. Begging does not work in this business or in sales at all. It used to, I guess, years ago, but we are at a different level within this culture. We run away from that kind of stuff. So if you have a sense that maybe the person just doesn't understand, you just try to dive a little bit deeper and say, and maybe you even call them on that and say, I just want to make sure, Bob, that maybe there hasn't been a misunderstanding. is there a fear or a real concern that you have overall, and maybe even considering, even the possibility of considering this? Isn't that just reasonable to ask?
Of course. Of course.
So watch. So Bob says, well, what if, what if you don't pay me? What if I do this? So listen, I've got I don't think there's anybody now on the planet that's going to say something in response to what I'm doing. I want to go, that's a good question. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've heard it all. And so a lot of times I don't even answer their questions. But even when they ask me a question, it sets me up to ask another question to go deeper. And I'm helping them hear themselves and helping them sell themselves, if I can say it that way. So this is kind of bigger, right? This is why it takes time, like in my coaching, right? To really help people kind of pull back the layers of this onion to get down deep into how you really work with people. So he says, oh, what if you don't pay me? I said, oh, that's what your concern is? But, oh, hey, Bob, you don't need to worry about that. So watch this. You know what I'm really selling to my seller?
What's that? Confidence.
I'm selling assurance.
Yeah.
Not insurance, but assurance that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I have to sound okay. I have to sound non-threatening, but I have to sound like I know what I'm doing. That's what your concern is, Bob. Yeah, Bob, you don't need to worry about that. Listen, what's going to happen is that the attorney, look at what I'm doing. I'm name dropping. The attorney's going to go ahead and put all the paperwork together so that we can legitimately make this payment to you. And you're not going to have to worry about that. It's all going to be in contract. Now, we haven't even talked about attorney yet. So I just dropped the name attorney in there. That objection is not going to come up later. What happens if I'm in the middle of a conversation? The guy says, what are you doing this without an attorney? I said, oh, no, you don't need to worry about that. No, we're really legit, man. I promise you, we're real legit. I got an attorney. His name's,
Yeah. Now you're backpedaling.
Now you're backpedaling. So what I do is I drop it in, and he wasn't really asking that question. But what did I just give him? Assurance that you don't have to worry about these things. We have an attorney involved. The attorney's going to do the paperwork so that we can make the payment. So you're not going to have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So Bob, it sounds like, so I do that and I say, like, it sounds like you might be considering doing this. Yes or no? Well, maybe. Okay. Hey, Bob, are you, I don't do this to everybody, but if he's on the fence, he may have a spouse or someone else. I may say, hey, are you like the primary decision maker, or is there someone else in your life that you would really want to have conversation with? Yeah. I really got to talk to my wife. Well, listen, hey, how about if we go ahead and get a time that the three of us can get on the call? Because if your wife's anything like my wife, she's going to have questions I'm not even going to be able to answer. So it might just be better for all of us to get on the phone. How many people are getting that when someone's trying to do sales, right? They're trying to get them, no, agree now, and I'll be there with a contract in 20 minutes. It doesn't work that way. I'm telling you, it just doesn't.
It doesn't. And I love the way that now you're bringing in another decision maker into the equation, and you're not just trying to get them and beat them over the head with like, hey, sign here, let's do this. Like everything you're doing is communicating confidence to me and understanding of the process. Right? While also making them feel comfortable and making sure that this makes sense to them or works for them. So I love the way you've positioned it and how you're communicating it. Yeah.
So a couple other principles. The last thing that I'll ever do on the phone is agree to any price. I don't make offers. Now I'll make an offer potentially if I'm purely going to wholesale it. And it's going to be a dramatic low offer to shake up my seller on purpose so I can then call them on it. So my offer is more of a range. I can tell you that someone that's really influenced me, I don't know if you know the name Chris Voss, but
of course, never split the difference. Of course.
I love Chris. I've outlined his entire book. It's in my DNA now, except that I can't do the deep. He has the deep.
He's got the radio voice.
DJ voice there. Yeah. I can't that part. But you'll pick up a lot of good stuff in there about you got to know how to get the other person to express themselves. So when the person goes, I would never sell my house for that much. I say, oh, okay. Hey, you know what, Alex, completely understand. Listen, hey, how close to this could you get? See, I've already anchored them. All I'm trying to do is find what we call the floor. I just want to find the floor. Where are you really at?
Yeah.
Because if this is it, if I realize you are not going to go a dime lower and I'm $30,000 less, do you think I'm going to tell you, okay, I'm ready to give you my offer? No, I'm going to say, Alex, you and I are so far apart right now. there's just no way that we're going to be able to do this. I mean, unless you've got another idea here, we're just in two very, very different places.
Yeah.
Now I know I'm not working with someone that's flexible. So let's say I'm doing a creative deal and they're saying, okay, yeah, I want to do this. And I say, well, listen, okay, so I really want to get over to the house. I want to take a look at the house. And why don't we schedule that? And they say, okay. And I say, so what are you asking for the house? Oh, I'm asking for 420,000. Let's say that's a reasonable amount. I'll say, okay, you sound like you're flexible, Alex. Tell you what, let me get over to the house to take a look at it. And once I'm there, how about if you and I continue this conversation about the price? Watch, would that work for you?
I bet you more times than not, they say, yes, sure.
95 out of 100 are going to say, yeah. And what did they just communicate to me?
That they're in the ballpark of, yeah.
More flexible than 420.
Yeah. Yeah.
The bird in the hand is when I'm in the house. Now I have to choose, right? So I don't want to say, hey, I want the least amount I have to pay per month. I want the least amount on the purchase. I want the least or the most amount of time. I may have to pick the one that's most important to me and downplay the other so I can get the one that's going to make the deal work.
Got it.
That happens when I'm in the house. But anyway.
I love it, man. Scott, I want to not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Uh-oh.
So this is good. Hopefully. There's so much more that I want to ask you about this process, and you've taken us, I feel like, into the red zone, to use a football analogy.
Sure.
Right. Like we haven't gotten this thing over the goal line in terms of like how many offers, how are you coming up with the structure and presenting it? So what I want to invite you to do, brother, if you're open to it, is if we can turn this into a 2-part podcast episode where this is obviously part 1, could we have you back on for part 2 to then go take us like into the red zone and into the end zone?
Absolutely not. I'm just, this is it. This is the only time you got to. I got to run. Okay. No, listen, I would be, just like I said at the beginning, I would be absolutely honored to be able to do that. I would love to put this down.
Awesome. So guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a pause, not an end, but a pause to this particular episode with my buddy Scott. And we're going to do a part 2. So whatever, I don't know what episode number this is, but the very next one is going to be part 2, where Scott takes us into the home stretch, into the red zone, and we're going to punch this thing over the goal line. So, man, Scott, this has been awesome. I love the way that you have just brought this down to a level that anybody can do this. You've taken the pressure off. And notice how, if you just understand bird's eye, 30,000 foot view, you don't need a script that is going to make you rigid and you're now not focused on you and not them. So this is going to be one of those episodes, guys, that I encourage you to re-listen to or rewatch, and then re-listen to and rewatch it again, because there's a lot of psychology going on in terms of the questions and how Scott's asking the question. So watch this. You'll have a week before we get to part 2, where we're going to get into like presenting the offer and just like getting this thing done. So Scott, brother, where can people connect with you and reach out to you? They're going to hear from you here in the next episode, but where's the best place for people to find out about your coaching, what you have going on?
Yep. I'm telling you, the best place is just Facebook. Go to Facebook. You can just type in My Deal Inc. INC, not ink as in a tattoo ink, but ink as in incorporated, but it's not incorporated, but that's just the name, My Deal Inc. And I post there all the time. I do reels and memes, and I bring in content.
I love it.
And would love to engage with people on that platform.
Awesome. So guys, connect, and we'll include the link to his Facebook, My Deal Inc., in the show notes. And then make sure that you listen to this a couple times and then plug in for the very next episode where we're going to do part 2 with my buddy Scott. So my man, appreciate you dropping wisdom and sharing your knowledge. All right.
You got it, man. Peace.
Take care. God bless. All right. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. Guys, here is the great thing about what Scott has shared, is that you can use this when speaking to a motivated seller of trying to buy their home. You can use this speaking to a mom and pop storage owner operator, because this is exactly what I do and what we do and what our clients in our Storage Wins coaching community do. Speaking of, if you want to learn more about storage, I have some free training that I put together for you, along with some valuable resources, the exact letter that I use to have acquired several storage facilities, along with a few other goodies in there that are very valuable, no strings attached. Shoot me a text, put the word storage and send a text to 305-318 6213. 305-318-6213. We'll shoot you over the resources. And if you're interested in having a conversation about storage, just go to www.storagewins.com, WINS, storagewins.com. And if I like what you have to say, we'll schedule a brief call. We'll talk and go from there. So have an incredible day, and make sure to tune into part 2, which is coming next week with my buddy Scott. Take care. All right, my friend, I hope you enjoyed that Flip Empire episode and got a lot of value out of it. Make sure to check the show notes page for any resources that were mentioned. And speaking of resources, honestly, I don't think I've done the best job of sharing with you my top curated, highly recommended tools and resources that I use in my business or have used in my business. In some cases, these are affiliate relationships with people that I highly trust and respect, and I know these tools and resources can help you and your business go to the next level. And as an ethical bribe, if you decide to try out one of these resources using my link, I will go ahead and send you an unadvertised bonus. I'll send you something of high value. All you got to do is shoot me an email, alex@flipempire.com. Go ahead and let me know that you that you tried out this resource, and however I can help you getting started with that. Chances are that I know it very, very well and currently use it or have used it. So make sure to check that out, flipempire.com/resources. And if I can be of help or service to you in any way, just shoot me an email, alex@flipempire.com, and I will do anything I can for you. Have an amazing day, and I'll catch you on the next show. All right, guys, we are back at it. Let's rock and roll with episode 776, where I'm going to interview Scot Poirier, and we are going to continue this theme on creative financing and deal structuring. Now, this particular podcast is going to be unique from many others in that we are going to not really dive into Scot's story, and it's not going to be like in the clouds as far as more theory. but we're going to get into like the specific nuts and bolts of having conversations with owners to introduce and present seller financing. Like Scott is going to take you from A through, I'm going to call it R. And then the reason I say that is because this is actually part one of a two-part podcast episode series with Scott. So the next episode is going to be part two, where we've gotten into the red zone and he's going to take us from the 20-yard line over, we're going to cross that goal line for my football fans. Obviously, I'm using a football analogy. For those that don't, use whatever analogy works for you, but we're going to go about 70-80% of the way there. And then in part two, he's going to take us across the finish line. So the next two episodes, starting with this one, is going to be about how you can now take the pressure off and just have very simple, basic conversation with an owner, ask pointed questions, and we're going to even get into the psychology of the questions. One of the reasons I want to do this and I wanted to have Scott on is because I love seller financing, owner financing, creative deal structuring, being a transaction engineer. These are things and tools that I leverage in the single family space. I've also leveraged them in the storage space. The facility that we own in just north of Jacksonville was purchased with 90% seller financing with some amazing terms. So as you're about to hear, creative financing isn't a niche. This is something that you can apply to anything. I'm in the process of acquiring something that is somewhat unique and different with creative financing, all right, on terms. So guys, with that being said, just so you know, Scott runs a community called My Deal Inc., which is all targeted and designed to helping investors grow a real estate business that leads to financial freedom, which is what everybody wants, by getting cash now, cash flow, and cash later. He's done deals all over. He's got a tremendous amount of experience, and he's done this without having to use his credit, rely on banks, accumulate debt. And now he runs this community of like-minded individuals all seeking financial freedom. So I think you're really going to like this episode with Scott. And without further ado, let's dive into episode 776. This is part one.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.